welcome to Beauties and Beasties, the independent pest podcast for the UK.
Hello. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Evening. How are you?
I'm doing very well. It's been a good old week. I was only saying to Hugh in the backstage, God, has it been a week already since I last spoke to you guys? But no, it's actually just been 2 days, hasn't it? Because we did our emergency broadcast on Wednesday.
Yeah. That was different, but I think it definitely shows an appetite for something on the Wednesday. Don't know how we'd manage it or what we'd do. We have had some talks about it, but they're preliminary. But there's got to be something there somewhere along the lines that will assist the industry. Agree? Disagree?
I mean, I agree. I just don't want to sort of like, we're on this once a week already. I'm sure people are getting tired of our faces and voices already. But certainly if there is, if people want it, I'm more than happy. I can chat shit about this industry till the cows come home.
Yeah.
I don't mind
The thing
at
is,
all.
right, we think we chat shit, but fucking people tune into Coronation Street every night, and that is fucking dog shit, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Like the tune into Coronation Street and EastEnders, it's not even real life. So we've got to be more interesting than that, haven't we? No.
Just waiting for the comments to start coming in now of everyone being like, don't you bash my Corrie. Like, it's a well-established industry. I think, what was it? It still holds the record. I think it's either Coronation Street or EastEnders, the record for the most tuned in program ever in British TV history. So yeah, if we ever get to the point where we can challenge Coronation Street, I'll buy you a pint. Yes, but I don't know. Anyway, what have you been up to this week? We didn't really have this chat on Wednesday.
What I've been up to this week, signed a salsa site up, so that's a little bit exciting for us because we don't really do a lot of that, and I'm looking forward to doing that. We have just pushed another project into its sort of final. We took a massive site on. It's like 800 meters long, 40 meters wide. We've had it from inception, where it was just a lump of dry ground, and we're now buildings built. So we have to push into doing the main building now. So there's like a shed ton of boxes to go in that. Done a honeyberry removal this week. Got another one booked in. Load of drain surveys done this week. We're just manic at the minute. We probably need somebody else to join us, but I don't really want anybody else to join us because I'm happy with our little team. And the bees are going ballistic.
I love how our little industry has evolved from being the rat man or, the wasp man, colloquially speaking, to now all of these fringe elements that we kind of picked up over the last 5-10 years, drain surveys, bee removals, have become such a big part of so many people's day to day. It used to be sort of like a bit of a scary thing to get it, and actually so many people now are doing drain surveys, so many people are doing bee removals. It's become a huge sort of like part of our industry. Hugh already saying no bees, don't talk about the bees. But okay, I'm gonna say very quickly, my bees woke up last month, a couple of months ago, and they are absolutely roaring away to the point that I'm just about to I've got a lovely top bar hive that I've been waiting to put them into, and I'm going to move them into that. Why are you laughing at me? I love a top bar hive. I think they're really cool.
Absolutely shit.
No,
but it's everything that I could. If someone said to me, Alex has got bees, I'd go, he's probably got them on them shit top bar hives. And I could just see it coming a mile off.
I think they're really cool. Anyone who doesn't know anything about bees, traditional sort of like beekeeping, it goes vertically. You have a stack of you have a square, and you basically put a stack of comb in there, and then if you want it to go bigger, you go up. The top bar hive, it's not that. It never goes above 1 story. You simply go out and along, and it's not good for making honey. but it is great for keeping bees. Just
It's not.
bees.
You can't do, like we call it, manipulations. You can't do manipulations in them. You can't do demarés. It's difficult to do splits. It's difficult to do everything with them, and then they're just
I have
attached at the
one.
top. So you're like holding them, and everything's falling to pieces. And there's a reason why fucking 99.99% of beekeepers don't keep them in top bar hives. That's because they're fucking useless.
I don't keep my bees for the honey. I keep my bees because I just like my bees. I like to go and I like to see them sort of like plow out across the field of beans and seed that are on the farm and just things.
No, wait, yeah, not quite commercial. Anyways, Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
So all good. So other than that, no bees. Asian hornets.
I told
That's something we haven't spoken about for a
you I
while.
had my VAT inspection, didn't I? Did I tell you I had my VAT inspection?
Yeah, you have mentioned it once or twice.
Oh, have I? Was it not this week I had it?
No,
Last week.
you had it. It was last week because we had accountant on.
Yeah. I tell you what they did tell us, that since the new government has come in, and this is why I've kind of brought it up, they said that their job as tax inspectors is not to like look at things proportionally. Their job is to bring more money in, and if they're not bringing the money in, they're getting held to account. So just if you are robbing, if you are taking stuff, if you're not doing things properly, be very, very careful, because they're after you, and they've just employed another something like 3,000 tax investigators. They are at us, as if we don't give enough, they want more. So thoroughly expect that the days of not seeing the HMRC, which is what was happening, are going out the window. They are after the fucking cash now, and they are coming with a mindset of they're coming to take it. So just be very careful.
Oh, well, that just sounds terrifying and awful.
Yeah.
I don't want to play that game anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it, and again, so if anyone missed last week's podcast, we had a lovely chat with a bookkeeper, come accountant, who explained a lot of this to us and the reasons why. So if you are concerned about getting your returns in correctly, and that's the big thing, then listen back, go and have a listen to that. It's well worth the time spent just in your car catching up with that, because as I'm sure Sean will tell you, it's probably a lot less stress to get it done as you go along than have that sort of like 1-2 months lead up to it and suddenly think, Christ, I don't have receipts for this, I don't have that.
Alex, I don't mind telling you, we do, and I promise you, we do things right. We pay with tax, we do everything correctly. And I was shitting my pants.
I'm sure.
So if you've been robbing, I'm telling you now, you're gonna have some fucking sleepless nights if they come and knock on your door. Like,
suddenly we just see a whole load of our viewers, and the metrics are dropping off, everyone's just running off. Right, I was going to go hide the Porsche.
Shares in Horlicks, Horlicks, you see.
Just money everywhere. I mean, talking about sort of like robbing and doing the rest of it. The bloody what was I about to say? Did you see in the States, to get around the tariffs, Apple flew in 5 private Boeings full of iPhones to try and get around the tariffs? And it's such a joke, isn't it? Because it's the people who get stung by these sweeping changes in legislation, the changes in VAT or corporation tax or tariffs. It's not the big players that it's aimed at. It's us, because we've got nowhere to go. We've got we've got nowhere to hide. That's it. Jason, that's why I married an accountant.
What's he called, Jason?
That's multitasking, that is. And it starts early. There we go. Right, so with that, and on that note, shall we bring in our special guest for tonight?
Yeah. Let's bring him in, Tim Bloomer. Where the hell did they find that photo from? It must have been about 37-year-old, that photo, is it, Tim?
Well, if you're going to start on that one, Sean, and I noticed you mentioned it in your the end of your special when I get on Birmingham on Wednesday. The only question I got for you is, what the hell were you doing on Grindr to find it?
I go on there all the time. I'm comfortable with that, Tim, but I hope you're not picking on us, because if you're bringing it up, I'm sure we'll have to have words about that, won't you? Because we're very inclusive around here. But I've got no issues. So quite funny because Tim said to me, grinder and bowls is 2 favourite things. And I was like, it's funny because they're mine as well. Grinding balls. Like, it's class, isn't it?
Our guest has been on for less than 1 minute, and this is how this has gone. So there we go. Hi, Tim. How are you doing? Ignore him. He's an ass. So, Tim, everyone knows you, but for the sake of those who may be new into the industry, for the sake of those who may be sort of like living in a bit of a hole, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your journey of how you got into pest management. Not necessarily what you do at the moment, but how you got from, you know, that fair-haired youth we saw in the picture to where you are now.
Well, I've been in the industry now, 27 years. And I can remember the exact date, 9th of February 1998 was when I started as a technician at Rentokil. Like a lot of people, I guess, it wasn't something I planned on doing. I left school at 18, having just about scraped 1A level, with a very clear idea of what I wanted to do in my life, and only one ambition, and that was actually to become a copper. Living in a small rural village, I started off with 3 part-time jobs. One of those was on a garden centre. Applied then to, would you believe, every single police force in the country. Unfortunately, I tend to live my life, well, I did then, I've seen grey now, in a black and white world, and most of them said no for medical grounds, because I'm asthmatic, and I sort of went, okay, that's that done, move on. I ended up spending 14 years in horticulture. At 23, I got a job as a chauffeur, gardener and handyman, dealing with all sorts of things, driving fast cars for a living, no pressure, long hours, and dealing with the odd bit of pest control, bit of rabbit control, rodent control around the place, that sort of thing. And then all the other beasties that you get in horticulture. So I was used to handling chemicals, used to diagnosing problems, etc., etc. Sadly or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, that came to an end when my boss decided he was going to make me redundant. In fairness, it wasn't quite that brutal. I actually left, but he paid me redundancy, which was very good of him. But on the Friday night that I kind of figured out that he was planning on retiring, and I asked the question, you go to the local evening rag, which back then was where jobs were advertised, all 8 or 9 pages of them, and there was a job for a technician at Rentokil Pest Control. And I guess I had enough allied skills and experience in various things that they took a punt on me. And I spent 10.5 years at Rentokil in, I think it's 8 different roles, certainly 7 different roles, on both service and sales side. Left there for personal reasons, and then ended up working for Cannon Pest Control as regional manager for 4 years, a job that made me very ill. And then 12.5 years ago, I joined Killgerm.
Excellent. I mean, so how did you find working at Killgerm? What was it like as someone just starting off in the industry?
Definitely not.
Sorry, but for those who are listening back, we've just put up a bit of a word cloud at the moment that you can type in on and join in on to basically say what job you think Tim should have had. And the first out the back, without any hesitation whatsoever, is someone claimed that Tim should have been a stripper. And let's be fair, it would have been an event, wouldn't it? But Rentokil is where you went instead. There's mixed opinions about Rentokil, but a lot of people who've come out of the Rentokil mill say it was the best thing, the best thing they could have done. So, what were your experiences like with Rentokil?
I enjoyed my time there because I got exceptionally good training. It was an environment in which you got exposed to a great deal of different types of pests, including a lot of the store product insects and all that sort of thing. I had some very good mentors there in Steve Powell, Scott Fairhurst, who's no longer with us, Mike Rimmer, John Charlton, Chris Davis.
John Charlton, that's a name and a half. That's quite a, there's some big names to grow up, so to speak, but to join the industry alongside, isn't it?
Yep. I am very target driven. I like a target. Not as bad as I used to be. So I was probably the ideal candidate for him, because that business is full of different targets, regardless of which role you've got. And my attitude was quite simple. How do I get to be the top of that pile?
Okay.
And in all honesty, if it wasn't for one or two individuals under certain circumstances, I'd probably still be there.
Really? So you started off as a tech, but did you then work your way up, or were you just happy being on the ground?
No, technician for 15 months, supervisor for about 13 months. Then I took that jump into the dark side. Having said to my service manager previously, I would never go into sales. That's my career ruined. I then went in to become a surveyor, sales manager, national account manager, which was the best job I had there for 4 years. And then following the big changes that went on, I went back to being a local ops manager.
And
I'll openly admit, I'm not the best at managing people.
Okay, fair enough. So what happened? You if you don't mind me asking, you said that you would have still been there if it weren't for an event. What happened? Did the ethos change, or did the people change? I mean, it's interesting to hear when someone talks passionate about a job and then changes, so to speak.
I think people know that I'm a fairly black and white character. I don't like games being played. And there were a couple of individuals there that were playing games, making promises, breaking promises, therefore breaking trust. I've got to be careful what I say, I guess, but I was promised a certain role, which was given to somebody else who I believe, and still believe to this day, at the time was underqualified.
Yeah, there's no quicker way to sort of like lose a good member of staff, is it, to see them passed over for promotion, which is a bit of a shame. But
and I had to get out of jail card in the fact that Steve Powell, who had been my branch manager there, had left and gone to Canon, and he had a vacancy, which was essentially that promotion. And he offered me the job as regional manager at Canon. Partly because he knew it needed sorting out, and he knew what I would do to it.
So how long before was that Canon, because Canon classically and famously got bought by Rentokil. So how long were you at Canon for before you ended up finding yourself back in the Rentokil fold?
Well, I didn't go back to Rentokil.
Okay.
Because I was there for 4 years, and probably 12 months before I left, you could start to see the writing on the wall. They were just lining it up to be sold. And this job became available. I'd worked with Richard Knoll previously in national accounts when Richard was here, so I got a lot of insight into this role, and Killgerm was a company from Richard. And this was one of the occasions when the captain jumped off the sinking ship first.
Follow me, lads. Infested water's better than this bullshit. I'm off.
I can remember a conversation with one of my technicians, a young lady down in Brighton, probably 15 months before I did leave. And there were lots of rumours floating around. And she asked me in a team meeting, are our futures safe or our jobs safe? And I said to her, look, as far as I know they are. And I can assure you, the moment I get an inkling that they're not, I'll be the first out. So I was honest with them.
Yep, there we go. Exodus followed that.
For those who haven't been in the industry that long, who bought Canon? What was the process of Canon being taken over?
Now, I got a feeling that Connaught were in there somewhere, but it certainly ended up at Rentokil.
Right.
As part of Rentokil. And I know a lot of people there that went back to Rentokil. I employed a few people from Rentokil when I was there. and they ended up going back to Rentokil. Most of them left pretty much straight away and started their own businesses.
I was about to say, because that's quite an interesting facet. Those who've been in our industry 5 minutes, you probably won't have seen this, or you might have seen what's happening at the moment with a lot of smaller companies getting things snaffled up and thinking, oh my God, this is a huge change for our industry. But it's not really, is it? Because our industry kind of goes through this peak and ebb cycle, doesn't it? And Tim, you've been here where you'll have you'll get you'll get a whole load of sort of like small SMEs, and they'll build up, and then suddenly the big servicing companies will be like, you know what, and they'll go on an acquisition push, and because one does it, the others also follow suit, and the big servicing companies snaffle up the biggest small to medium size, semi-national organizations. And usually what happens, that exactly as Tim says, you get a lot of technicians snaffle up. They don't necessarily want to integrate back into the big servicing companies, a big organization. And after about a year to 18 months, there is this like seeding event, isn't it? Where you get lots of micro businesses setting up when people suddenly, I've been doing this for 4 years, 5 years, I can do it on my own. So it's interesting to see what this cycle will bring, if it's the same thing that we've seen happen before. What's your views on that? What's your bet?
My bet, I look at it at the moment, and I've still got the PowerPoint presentation from one of our sales meetings from probably 6 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, where I'd actually done a SWOT analysis on my territory, and I listed 10 of my customers, all of whom had a certain profile. Generally, ex-Rentokil surveyors, 8 or 10 staff, maybe a few more in some cases, decent contract portfolios, and the owners were in their late 50s, early 60s. And the point being, they were all, as far as I made the point, they were all at risk of being bought out in the next few years. Yeah. There's one of those 10 still operating.
There we go.
The problem I see now is there are a lot of extremely good sole traders out there, a lot of really good, capable people, but there aren't too many people possibly with the ambition to fill that gap and grow a business that's going to fill that gap for the future. And I can see that divide between a whole row of, very small 1, 2, 3 man bands and this big group of 6 or 7 companies now that are buying everything.
Yeah, because it's gone from 3 to about, well, I can count probably 5 off the top of my head, 6 at a push. The number of those big servicing companies has doubled, in the last 3 years alone.
There's a real opportunity for people there to fill that void and build a decent SME business. And I think one of the comments there, the reason I smiled just now, one of the comments there, somebody's just popped up. It was probably my best piece of recruitment at Canon. And he is doing exactly that. He's building a very good SME business.
Who?
Awesome.
Pete Davis.
Have they not been bought out? I thought they'd been bought out.
Absolutely my best ever piece of recruitment, him.
Has he been? Has the firm he's with not been bought out though?
Don't know. I haven't seen
Pete. Have you been bought out, Pete?
Well, he'll answer in the comments in a second. I don't believe
he's going to answer that one, is he?
Heard it here first, guys. Tim, so this is something that we discussed, on and off passingly from there, but it'll be really, really interesting to get your take on this, which is how, from your experience, having worked for a big company and then sort of like for years and years, supporting a lot of the small traders and the SMEs through Killgerm, what's the bit of advice you can give those micro businesses to SMEs to help distinguish themselves from the big servicing companies? What can they do that the big servicing companies can't? Where can they hang their hat that will get them?
Yeah, there's been a real drive over the last few years, I think, for the customer, the end user, the person using the pest control service, to start to use local sole trade, local businesses, no matter what you're buying to bring into your house or your property. I think commercially, with the drive for sustainability and corporate social responsibility and all that sort of stuff, there is a chance there to really understand what your customer base is looking for and how you can help tick those boxes. And it's then about delivering good, honest service, delivering what you say. And it might be a cliche: under promise and over deliver. Don't ever over promise and under deliver, because you're going to fail. The challenge in all that, Lex, is sit down and work out what is it that makes you different. How do you make yourself different? And we talk about this a lot in our sales course, and whenever any of myself and my colleagues are having that conversation with somebody about the basics of selling and sales skills, how do you open doors in this industry? Because fundamentally, everybody is doing that the same way.
Mm-hmm.
They're going in, they're putting down monitors of some sort, whether it's, with non-toxic, whether it is some form of permanent baiting indoors, that sort of thing. And it's worked for years, absolutely worked for years. But we go in, we check bait boxes, we check all the conditions that cause the problem, and we produce a treatment report. What makes you different? I actually, not a lot of people know this, but when I walked out of the interview for this job, I phoned my wife and said, I think it's gone okay, but just to pre-warn you, if I don't get this job, I'm leaving and starting my own business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I started from, was what will make me different? If I go out knocking on doors and trying to win business through cold calling, what is it that's going to make me different? And 13 years ago, that was a really difficult question. And I worked out a sales pitch, and I worked out something that could make me different, only to start a conversation, because that's the key, is how do you start that conversation with a prospect? Right now has got to be the most exciting time to do that, because you've got all sorts of new innovation and new technologies coming through that can absolutely give you something to talk to the customer about that is different. Let me come and show you how pest control is going to be done in the future. And it's a conversation.
Yeah, this is something we're definitely, like, when we're a little bit later on tonight, we're really going to drill into, because we've spoken a lot about, the future of, let's say, smart technology. Let's call it smart technology just for the sake of argument. And, you and I have spoken about it at the trade shows, and we've spoken about it online. And there is a fundamental misunderstanding as to how it can be sold. So it'd be really useful to get it from, like, this commercial end user's point of view as to how this can be used. Not the manufacturer's point of view, not the guys who are making it, because they will have their own views, and sometimes they're good and sometimes they are so wildly disconnected from those on the ground that it's unreal. So someone who's been there, done it, and more importantly, does these courses on sales, really love. So let's put a pin in that one and actually circle back round to that one a bit, because that's going to be fantastic. But yes, it's one of these things. We're seeing this huge shift in our industry, and so there it is. Do you think this will be the change of our industry? If we look back on this in 2 years' time, will we say this was the moment that everything changed, or do you think this is just business as usual and it's just part of a cycle?
If we're talking about smart technologies, I liken it to a big wave coming in off the ocean. And you go back 4 or 5 years, very slow moving wave, incidentally, but these systems became mainstream 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and that wave is slowly ramping up, and there's been a lot of resistance, and I get the resistance, and I get why people are nervous about it or don't necessarily want to engage with it. There's all sorts of reasons for that. That's part of our job, is to take people on that journey. But that wave is slowly building. It's getting closer to the shore, and it's getting very, very close now. I think we're probably 2 years out from that wave going over the top. And in a couple of years' time, this will start to become mainstream. This will start to be how pest control is done. That may well be driven by more regulation on rodenticides. Mm-hmm. But there is a different way. We'll come back to that, how to look at it. There's a different way of looking at it. You can absolutely start and put this into your business now.
Yes, and that is going to be the really fun part of this, isn't it? Is learning not just how to use the tools, but how to sell them. It's strategies and tactics, isn't it? Strategies require the thought, and the tactics require the doing.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that's going to be really good. So come on, continue us on your journey through time. We've spoken about you with Rent-A-Kill, Canon, and then of course from that you didn't want to go back into Rent-A-Kill, so that's when you joined Killgerm. Richard gave you a heads up. When was that?
That was 12 and a half years ago, whatever that was. 2012, I guess.
Okay.
August 2012, I believe it was.
That would have been
cancelled holiday.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, we had a holiday booked, and we turned the holiday into we for my induction week. Myself, my wife, and my two daughters travelled to Huddersfield, hired a cottage, which Killgerm very kindly paid for, instead of putting me in a hotel. They had a holiday in and around Huddersfield and North Yorkshire, and I went to work every day and got to grips with this job.
You don't get that very often these days, do you? I would hasten to say that's very much a thing of the past. I haven't heard of anyone having done that for a long time.
Well, it is a really nice thing to do, quite clearly.
Yeah.
But if they'd have put me in a hotel for 5 or 6 nights with food, it would have cost them a lot more money than the cottage cost.
Okay, maybe not the magnanimous decision that I once thought it was. You could have left it there. So my other question would be, is 2012, if I'm right in remembering, that was just at the very end of Jonathan Peck's time at Killgerm, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that was a great man. I think I was here probably 12 months before he passed away. And I didn't have a lot of interaction with Jonathan, but the interaction I did, he was just one of those people you would want to work for. Absolutely.
So for those who may not have heard the name, Jonathan Peck was a huge disruptor. Let's be fair. He was a huge disruptor in our industry. He set up what was NPAP, and now still is NPAP, which was bringing the trade associations and the manufacturers together with the Chartered Institute of Environmental Health, so the National Pest Advisory Panel, and a whole host of other things. He was, instrumental in the growth of Killgerm, and he was a disruptor. He was very much of opinion. I sat on a couple of committee meetings, I wouldn't say alongside him, but in the same room, and he had what's the right way of describing it, Tim? A personality that you could not ignore. He had an opinion, and he was not shy of bringing it to the table, and he pushed Killgerm and indeed the industry forwards in many respects for a long time.
He was one of those people, when he walked into a room, he lit the room up, and when he started to speak, you listened. That's simple. That was just the strength of his personality, was you listened to what he had to say.
Yeah, and he changed a lot. He pushed a lot of things. I think one of my the last memories I had of him, and I didn't realize he was so unwell at the time, is at the last Pestex that he ever did. And I don't know if you were there for this one, Tim. He paid a man to dress up as a Pied Piper and a couple of people to dress up as rats. And he did you not remember that?
No.
He wandered around Pestec with them following him, directing people back to the Killgerm stand. I'm sure I hadn't dreamt that one. If anyone remembers seeing that, we're going back almost 20 years. In fact, we are going back at least 15 years here. This thing happened. I promise you, it was mad. It was absolutely crazy to behold. But there we go. And am I right in thinking that when he left, instead of the company wasn't sold, it was left as a cooperative to all of the staff members, wasn't it? Is that correct?
The majority. I mean, this again speaks volumes of the man himself. In order to protect the staff that had helped build the company, and more importantly, make sure that our customers who had been loyal to us were protected, a majority shareholding has been placed in trust. Now, that's not to say that members of staff are shareholders, etc., but it does mean that it is very difficult for the company to be sold to venture capitalists, etc., etc. So it gives us complete stability. and our customer base knows that we are here for the long term.
Yeah, and I think you see that because very rarely do you see people moving back out of Killgerm when they've moved in, with a few notable exceptions, Lawrence and Brady, but they've both gone on to they've moved on to other roles in the industry. It's not like anyone's left in a big cloud of thunder. So it's interesting stuff. So how do you find being a sales rep at Killgerm? How did you find that from selling pest control treatments to pest control products? How much of a transition was that?
It's a slightly different type of sale in that this is about building long-term relationships, whereas the rent-to-kill type environment is very much about you start month one on zero, you've got to go and find a daily target, you've got to find a monthly target, and when you've achieved that all gets forgotten the next day when you wake up on the first of the next month, and you've got to go and do it all again. So it's very much about the here and now, and you learn how to play the game and how to survive in that environment. There's no doubt about it. I'm not saying that you have to learn how to do some of the dodgy stuff. And I made sure that I could sleep at night and go to bed with my conscience clear with everything I sold. But you learn how to play the game. You learn how to make money. This job, I say, is very much about helping customers in lots of ways. And we often, when we're talking, we will refer to it quite a lot of the time. We do stuff that probably steps out of our job description in order to build that relationship for the long term, and become, hopefully, almost part of somebody's business. And that's from everything from, can I have a data sheet for this? How do I make money out of this part of the business? Where can I make some money more from? How do I open doors for contracts? Through to, obviously, we're selling product off the back of that all the time. I've done surveys. I mean, this week, Monday, I was in central London, way off my patch with one of my customers, helping them with a very large survey on a very large building that's got periodic mouse problems, and hopefully adding some gravitas to what they've been saying to their customer in order to get the recommendations done and the extra sales revenue out of it. I was sorting fly killers out in Warrington on Tuesday. I was putting rat matting in Barla on Tuesday afternoon. Birmingham breakfast meeting with 40 odd people there on Wednesday morning. Presentations on compulsory crew training along the way. And Carmarthen yesterday. It's a varied role, Alex.
Yeah, it is. I can almost see Sean gearing up to ask you, the Birmingham aspect. Okay, I was about to say, Birmingham. You were in Birmingham. Is it the shit show that the media is making it out to be?
No, see, I wasn't actually in Birmingham. I was in Dudley. Okay. I actually haven't been into Birmingham yet whilst this is all kicking off. Clearly, I have a relationship with the council there. So I know certain things I'm not going to repeat quite clearly. And we all know that the press tend to sensationalise things a little bit. But clearly there are very large piles of rubbish around. And there are lots of rats around.
Yes, that's it. Do you think there's going to be... Do you think it's going to be a big problem? The media, of course, rats the size of cats, and those among us are saying, there's a real risk of disease. But, from your point of view, is this a storm in a teacup, or is this something
Again, I've got to be careful with a Killgerm head on. This is my own personal belief. And here's a prediction for you. 5 years' time, this country is going to face something of a public health crisis. Birmingham is the tip of the iceberg.
Why'd you say that?
For all sorts of reasons. Right, so if we draw a comparison to squirrel numbers, squirrel bait went off the market 5 years ago. I think most people would agree that there are more grey squirrels than ever, everywhere, and they are coming into places they didn't used to see them. I mean, I live on the edge of a fairly small town. I can look out my window here and I can see fields. I take the dogs for a walk in the morning, and every tree that I walk past, there are squirrels in, where 3 or 4 years ago I would not see a single squirrel. So if we start to withdraw the control measures for the right reasons, I get stewardship, but I understand stewardship. But let's suppose you get 50% compliance from farmers and gamekeepers. That's great swathes of farmland not being treated, where rats can breed untethered. Nature will get to a point where those rats will move. Potentially further restrictions over the next few years. Lack of sewer baiting, lack of local authority pest control. So, as you were saying on Wednesday, there will be a demographic of people who cannot afford a private sector pest controller.
Do you think we're going to lose sewer baiting as an option on rodenticides?
No, I wouldn't. I don't think that one's going to happen. But when I started in the industry, Sean, local authorities had vans with holes in the floor so they could drive over the top of a sewer chamber and bait it safely. They used to bait.
That's
there was so much sewer baiting done 20 years ago that isn't done today. How do most domestic rat jobs start now? From the sewers.
Absolutely. And there is an element you could always argue that. What?
Just a thought process.
Yes, no, and again, to play the cynic here, the argument would be, well, if we fix the drains, if we repaired the infrastructure, there wouldn't be a problem. But it is a balancing act, because, as Neil points out there, we got to a point in Birmingham now, and we use Birmingham as an example, that even if all that rubbish was to disappear tomorrow, the strikes were to end and everyone would come out in force and every last bin bag was cleared from the street, we still have that issue that there are all those rats that were propped up by that additional food source, and they're going to go off marauding, quite literally, looking for somewhere else to go.
What happened during COVID? When the retail parks were all closed, where did those rats go to? They went to people's back gardens looking for ponds and water source and that sort of thing, and food source.
Bird seeds and scraps left out because people were taking an interest in wildlife, and the only wildlife they ended up meeting was Roland, as opposed to anything else. But there we go. So, okay, let's sort of pivot on this, because we mentioned smart tech earlier, and this is kind of why you wanted to come on. And with your prediction there that things are going to get harder, things are also going to start to change, aren't they? And this is one of the ways in which this happens. Now, I have some clear views on smart tech, and Sean definitely has some views on smart tech. So let's start with you first. What's your views on this?
Well, I've had an interest in this for a long, long time. I'm going back to my days in national accounts at Rentokil, when Rentokil developed the first version of their Pest Connect system. And I ran one of the early trials on that with one of my national account customers. I can remember a trip to a very large commercial bakery, a very old bakery, and I believe it was in Wigan. And so I've had some involvement. The radar unit was introduced to Rentokil when I was there as a surveyor. And I've seen how when it's used properly, it can work for people. Now, that was rudimentary technology. You couldn't get a radio signal to go through a 2-foot wall. You had to bounce it through repeaters and all this sort of stuff. Now you can send that signal 125, 150 yards, clear line of sight. So from that point of view, everything's improved. But if we look at what's required of a professional pest controller nowadays to justify the use of their rodenticides and complete an environment where you want to control a problem outside, completing an environmental risk assessment. At the moment, a lot of that is done on somebody's professional judgment. To a degree, some of that is a little bit of educated and experienced guesswork coming in. And what smart tech will do, if we're going to call it that, is it will start to add a whole level of fresh and new data that is indisputable because it's being collected by the bait station or the device. And that data is going to become part of your justification. It's going to, from a pest controller's point of view, that's going to be what you can start to include in your environmental risk assessment in order to justify that bait usage. It also brings potentially a lot of value to the end user. Certainly anybody operating in the FM market, facilities management market, facilities managers are going to be all over this because they just love the data element. And if you can produce data at the click of a button, they will pay good money for it in the long term. And there's a massive payback to the pest controller in this, in that if you build your costing models right, you open your mind up to there is a different way of doing pest control from a point of view of, I don't need to go to site all the time. Then A, you can get some of your payback on the tech, and the tech doesn't cost you as much. And B, it frees up the most valuable part of your job, which is your time, to go and earn your money elsewhere. Or in Sean's case, I don't need to take on that extra technician at that massive cost because I can find efficiencies elsewhere. So there's 2 or 3 massive benefits here, but it does require a bit of a mindset change and a different look at how costing models work for contracts and that sort of thing. And I realise that's going to be a challenge. It's not going into every single customer out there. I get that.
So, Sean, your views on smart tech?
I just think the technology that we've got available to us is at the moment is dog shit, and I feel like we're trying to sell sand to the Arabs with it. And I'll prove it to you. Any single one of those smart technology people, right, who are absolutely convinced that their technology is the answer, I'll buy one of their units and I'll put it in on one of my farms, and I'll put a Reolink camera on that box, and we'll leave it up there for 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 18 weeks. And then we will openly discuss the data that the box produced and the data that the camera produced. And we'll see if they're even close and which one would your customer want. It's not that I'm against smart technology. I think smart technology is absolutely the way forward. I think the industry has been so fucking blinded with boxes and poison. And because we are old white blokes as a general result, and we are so intrinsically linked with this black box with poison in, we can't see past it. And as a result, we're trying to build a product around a very small percentage of people in the population. Whereas when you look at those that are using cameras and AI, it's just a no-brainer, isn't it? You could cover a whole site that you we're putting 84 boxes in on Monday. That whole site could probably be covered with 10 cameras if you put them strategically. And if you've got AI, which identifies everything that's in there and does your printout once a week, your boxes are dead and buried, other than being what they should be used for, which is bait tubs, in it. There's smart traps that tells you if it's caught something or not, and I just think it's fucking rubbish. And I think it's been proven that it's rubbish. For me, in my mind, it's been proven that it's rubbish. Because if you go on social media, how long smart technology been out for now? I have never once, ever seen anybody do a post on how smart technology helped them solve a problem. These intelligent boxes, I guarantee you now, if you go on any of them posts, you'll see a million posts of Reolink cameras showing you what you need to see. The technology in the market is telling you exactly where you need to go, and we're still like that. Black box with a fucking trap in, black box with a thing in, black box, and it's fucking rubbish, in my opinion. And having Rent-A-Kill just brought out a camera that does exactly that.
And technology will develop, Sean, as I said earlier on. We're on that wave. I haven't said technology is necessarily killing devices and all that sort of stuff. I think technology comes in various guises. And the answer lies in both. Because at the end of the day, I agree that the use of the cameras is absolutely partly the way forward. But that camera's just told you've got a rat running around. You've still got to go and put something in to kill it.
Yeah. But here's the thing. This is why I think it'll work, because that camera then supports the skill of the technician. So he goes, it ain't going in a box. No, it ain't going in a box. Now I've got to find it. Now I've got to use my brain, and now I've got to do me environmental risk assessment. I can say what was in there, and you can use it to drive the right sales that you need to drive. Whereas that black box drives the sales away. The technicians aren't adopting them.
Yeah, but there's lots of reasons why it hasn't been adopted yet. We'll come on to that shortly, no doubt. Next.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just Sean, why do you not think that a remote viewing camera isn't smart technology?
No, I do. That's what I've said. I absolutely support smart technology. I support smart technology implicitly, and I absolutely believe it is the future. I believe the reliance on the black box and trying to turn a snapback trap into something that tells you if it's being set off or not is absolutely going to die. I think it's going to be the mini disc to the streaming, if that makes sense. I think it'll be some technology that might work. It'll be here for a short period of time. It's dead in the water, and someone will take over. That's my gut feeling. But they're already doing it. We've got AI now that'll tell you what's in it and will categorize it and I just think that's the way it'll go, and let's see if I'm right or wrong.
I think there's definitely something to that, but I can feel what Tim's going to say next. I'm going to preempt it by lining you up for it, which is technology is one thing and the hardware is certainly another thing, but the biggest stumbling block by far is how we sell it, I think.
Yep.
And I know you have some views on this, Tim. Absolutely.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, this starts with, I guess, why do people use a pest controller? And that's because every pest infestation has a risk to that customer, and against that risk, there is a monetary value. That they stand to lose something, they stand to suffer damage, which is going to cost them, etc., etc. Traditionally, pest control has worked for decades. We've all done pest control the way it's been done for decades, which is the bait in the black box, Sean. Absolutely. That is, whether we like it or not, that's going to be placed under further and further pressures. And if you really sit down and analyse what we've done for years, that service model is almost reactionary, because we're putting a box in today and we're checking the data that it gives us in 4 weeks' time. We go back to that box in 4 weeks' time and all that bait's gone. We don't know if that went on day 1 or day 25. And that site may have been unprotected for almost a whole month. Cameras absolutely overcome that, Sean. Yeah. Can't argue with that. I'm not going to argue with that, because that's absolutely part of the solution. But equally, if you've got a rat running around and you can put a device in that's going to kill that rat and tell you it's done it and when it's done it, and help both the customer in terms of preventing that damage because the rat's killed before you know about it, it's part of building a data set, and that can include the cameras as to when it's happening, how it's happening, which direction it's coming from, etc., etc. That's got to be a good thing from the pest controller's point of view. What that also does, of course, is take away the need to spend time on site just checking bait boxes, because that's what a lot of people will do. Not everybody, I get that, but when you're a technician under pressure and somebody's watching your movements on a computer, you're going to go and check the bait boxes, because that's what you're getting judged on. So actually, you can help the customer more by not spending that time on site checking the bait boxes, but actually checking for all the conditions that cause the infestation in the first place. I had a conversation probably 3 years ago now. It might have been during COVID, with somebody who is extremely powerful in the pest control world in a particular organisation. And he is absolutely moving that organisation's pest control towards less technician visits, using some form of technology solution. Because in his words, I don't need to pay somebody to check my bait boxes. But those visits that get carried out, which is probably going to be 6 visits a year, will all be to field biology standard. Then we've got to look at the pressure we're going to be coming under, almost certainly, in terms of justification on environmental risk assessments. And I don't care what the tool is that people use, but actually using tools that are giving you data that absolutely prove there's a rat on that site will keep people the right side of prosecutions, because you've got absolute proof, not just somebody seen or thinks they've seen a rat. You've got proof that rat's running around. That goes on your environmental risk assessment. And then the biggest thing here is, why do we need to go and do 12 visits a year? The most. I would guess that if anybody looks at their budget sheet for their business, the biggest single expenditure on that budget sheet is going to be labour. You are singularly the most expensive thing in your business. And if you can take half of those visits out by using some form of smart technology, you save an awful lot on labour. You don't need to go and recruit that extra technician. And you can use that time to go and make yourself a lot more money. That's time you're freeing up to go and earn an income somewhere else.
I agree. And there is an element of, if you're smart with this, you can still, you say, why go 12 times a year when if you have cameras, let's say, for example, monitoring your site by remote, and you know exactly when the first rat's turning up and not. So let's say you can pop your visits back down to less than 12. There's nothing saying that you can't charge what you were charging before, rolling the rest of the cost of smart technology into that. And create, you can create less time, more money with this. It's a negotiation tactic, I think, called log rolling, which is where you take one thing, my visits, and you roll in another element to that, which is my smart technology, which actually is not giving you, 12 days of cover a year. It's giving you 365 days of cover a year. Of course, as Hugh says, rats sit on top of boxes. We've all seen it. But those boxes have to be there. As Sean says, cameras, other forms of detection. And we've seen it.
Think of it this way, right? I want to take you back to your rent-a-kill stroke, Connaught stroke thingy days, right? But imagine it's today. You're there today. And we've all known that the big guys, when they compete against each other, they'll turn up and they'll say, how's your pest control? Happy with what you've got? Yeah, we don't mind doing a free survey for you if you want. A free rundown on it to try and get that contract. How comfortable would you be if I'm a rent-a-kill or an Ecolab salesman, I come to your site and I say, actually, for a week, just for 1 week, we'll put 3 cameras in on this site to see how it's going. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you now, the vast majority of fucking people who had sites will shit their pants because they know that things will start popping up. And the next thing is, I know that we're saying that you don't have to go as much. I believe, through testing that we've done, I'm absolutely convinced of it, that once you start putting cameras in, you'll need to have technicians on site a hell of a lot more. Because there's been several sites we put them in where we were absolutely convinced it was clear of rats. They were getting no uptake, no nothing, no signs, no chewing. It was on farms, no bales burst open, no runs, no patterns, no nothing. And you are like, yeah, this is clear. And we put them in to see how long it would take for a rat moving on site to us catching it in a trap. It was the most terrifying thing I've ever fucking seen. It wasn't clear of rats. There's rats running over boxes. Yep. They were there in numbers, and you are like, oh my fucking word. And I'm telling you now, if anyone had went to that site that had said, no, you're good, you've got this nailed down, we fucking didn't. I promise you, you start putting cameras in, you'll be standing there going, oh my word. And I promise you now, if I was that way inclined and I started going around to the big guys around here and saying, listen, we'll do a free audit for you. We'll bang 2 cameras in because you know where they're coming off. You can see, put it in. And, oh, by the way, all your reports say you're clear of rats, my friend. Look at the photos, look at the pictures. Oh, and by the way, they've got bromadiolone in these boxes. But actually, you've got birds of prey on this site. We had buzzards sitting in the camera. We had what you call it, the little one that eats little birds, sparrowhawks sitting in the camera.
Sparrowhawks.
We had crows. We had stoats running over it, and you're like, oh my word! And all of a sudden you go, well, do you know that he's done this environmental risk assessment saying there's no issues, but look, here's your issues, here's your issues, here's your issues, and you've got rats on site, and there's a couple of little mice popped up as well. It will absolutely cripple them. And my prediction is that Rent-A-Kill are going to be the first to do it, because they always are. They've got the power and the buying power, and we'll play catch up. That's what I think is going to happen.
But that's a good example, Sean, of where technology can work. Because if we rewind the conversation about half an hour, and Alex was talking about me being a surveyor, and I said, now is a really exciting time to be opening doors and going and knocking on doors and winning contracts. And you have just relayed a story that absolutely proves the point. Even if we don't sell the technology is the door opener.
Yeah.
And clearly we sell systems. You're getting that result off of cameras. We have customers, and those that have adopted Pulse IQ, for example, who are getting the same result in warehousing and that sort of thing with Pulse IQ, where they have been saying that site is clear of mice. And the mice are running through they're putting rat boxes in with 2 traps in or with bait in. The mice are running straight through the tunnels. And they're suddenly finding activity on those sites they didn't know they had. So it adds that technology is adding that whole level of different monitoring and extra monitoring to that site. That's got to be a better level of service, whether it's cameras, whether it's a spot.
So I don't want to get this mixed up. I absolutely agree 100%. I agree that smart technology is the way forward. I just don't think that, like the Pulse IQ, great box will work in sites, but is it going to work in the centre of London, the centre of Birmingham, the centre of Middlesbrough, the centre of Blackpool? Like, you'll get some results with it. You'll get some results with it, but as soon as you get mice that won't go in a box and won't step on plastic, you're fucked, aren't you?
I'll come back on in about 2 months' time and answer that question. When I put it in that site, I was in on. When I put it in that site, I was in on Monday.
Listen, I promise you, if you want me to test Pulse IQ where I am, I'll go to one of our townhouses in Middlesbrough that we can get away with it, where we know we've got house mice. I'll put some Pulse IQ boxes in. I'll bang a Reolink camera in, and we'll see what results we get. And everyone will be like,
we have to be really careful there, Sean, don't we? That we judging a product on one site is not the right way to judge a product.
Yeah, but it has to. But it has to work, doesn't it? Because if you think that that one house in the centre of Middlesbrough will be common across all of them, and when that one product, the camera which captures everything, will be deployed on every site and work on them sites, I'm just saying that I think that I believe that bit will go and it will be replaced with a visual, because the visual always will work on the customer.
Technology moves on, didn't it? You know, if I go back to when I was a chauffeur, I had one of the early mobile phones. It was like a house brick of a battery with a bloody carry strap over my shoulder. Now look what we're carrying. We've got phones that have got more computing power than the Apollo moon landings. Technology will definitely move on. What I'm saying is we should be starting to adopt this, and there is a way. And we're on the same page here at the end of the day, Sean.
Yeah, agreed.
It's how do we take people on that journey? Because the biggest reason for lack of adoption of technology is not actually the price. It's actually cash flow. Because you can make good profit out of technology, provided you can take a longer term view. And there's the problem, is having the ability to pay for the tech up front and make your money off the back of it over a 3-year period. Now, I'm not an accountant, and I stand to be corrected on this next statement. But if you buy the tech in and you lease it to your customer, it's your property, it's your asset. In the same way that your sprayer, your fogger, your vehicle is a business asset. Can your accountant not do something with that on your annual accounts and write it down against tax and depreciation?
Yeah, but you think of it this way, and this is the other reason why I think cameras will work over boxes. And you're right about the mindset shift that it will take in pest controllers. If I turn around to you and said, how much do they pay to put CCTV around them big premises to look out for burglars?
Yeah.
And to get them monitored 24/7, it's a huge cost, isn't it? But realistically, which one is probably more of a risk when you explain it to the customer? What's the chance of you being broken into? They'd be like, it's pretty slim. What's the chance of rats coming in and chewing the wiring? What's the chance of rats coming in and getting you shut down from production? What's the chance of rats doing this, this, and this? Yeah, it's pretty high. So why are you paying 100 grand a year for CCTV for your burglars, which are not that much of a risk to you, but you think 2 grand a year on pest control is a worry? You know, if you start explaining like we're going to do the same as them, we're going to monitor it, we're going to look at it, we're going to respond to it, we're going to come to site, like apples for apples, all of a sudden we can make money at it, can't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'd love to hear you sort of like expand on that a bit more, Tim, because this is the crux of it, which is we're using this technology incorrectly, as Sean's pointed out. We're too reliant on candlesticks invented by light bulbs invented by candlestick makers. We're using some old technology in the wrong way. But when we do use it, and as Terry's pointed out here, it comes down to affordability. There is a fundamental misunderstanding. If you sell your rodenticide treatment as you have done for the last X number of years, and you don't factor in the cost of this smart tech, or even worse, you just include it as a lump sum and don't explain why, ain't nobody going to buy that. So give us some hints from your commercial and marketing hat here, Tim. How do you sell? Right. How do you sell smart tech?
So the first thing here is, and I'll make this offer because all of my colleagues have got the same. We have a costing model into which we can put real life sites, and we can demonstrate when you will get payback on your outlay on the technology. Happy to have that conversation anytime. It depends on which system you're talking about, Alex. So if we talk Pulse IQ, entry level technology, Bluetooth, cheap. It will pay for itself in 12 months. You don't even need to have a conversation with the customer about extra outlay, because if you've got bait boxes or traps in difficult to reach places that involve getting a ladder out or going under a subfloor that takes time, you put the smart technology in, and you only then need to check those when they've done what they're meant to do. And if we start to look at time, monetize time, and we can save 15 minutes on every routine, that's 3 hours of time saving every year. Typical labour rates that people are charging, that's saving somebody £200 on that contract. Plus it's freeing up time to go and make another £200 somewhere else. And that's more or less covered the cost of Pulse IQ within 12 months. And I've not even talked about selling it to the customer. If we talk about the other end of the scale, which is the Aura Trap, which if I base my experience on the first big install that I've done on it, it absolutely works and it absolutely kills rats for fun. That's 330 quid a box. Now that's an expensive piece of kit if you look at it as a cost. But here's a costing model for you. How do we do, this is a simple example, how do we do domestic jobs? Rats under the shed. Most people will go in, do 3 or 4 visits. But each of those visits to site is costing me money. It's costing me 25 quid upwards, between 25 and 30 quid to turn up and service that job. If I put 2 Aura traps in there, monitor them remotely and go back when they've stopped killing, I've done that in two visits. I've just saved myself somewhere between 50 and 100 quid.
What lure are you using in them?
Hang on. If I then take those 2 boxes out of there and do the next job and the next job, and they do 20 jobs for me, those 2 boxes are costing me 35 quid per treatment program. They've just saved me at least probably between 75 and 100 quid potentially on each job, each treatment program. They've paid for themselves over 20 visits. On that particular site, Sean, they are using very high quality peanut butter. And bear in mind,
how long do you think that's attractive for?
Well, they've been in since the 11th of December. The current body count is up at just about 450 across probably 17, 18 of those devices. There is plenty of food competition because it's a waste site. They are killing rats in the main tipping hall where the rats are being delivered and jumping off the lorries. And they are predominantly killing rats around the vehicle park at night, where I suspect the rats are jumping off the wagons at night. And those boxes around the lorry park, this is a virgin site. It's a brand new site. There's no hedgerows and there's nothing. They are literally fixed to lampposts on the curbside, and they are absolutely killing rats. And they haven't picked every single rat because the staff pick them up sometimes. But they give me photographs to prove they're killing rats. But that way, technology can, if you come back to this thing, it's time. From an end user's point of view, you are getting, in the same way you would with cameras, you are getting early detection of that infestation. If I go to site today to do a normal pest control routine, and that rat turns up tomorrow, I know about it in 4 weeks' time. With smart tech, if that rat turns up tomorrow, I know about it tomorrow. Now, whether I go and deal with it, depending on which piece of technology I'm using, whether it's the cameras, whether it's a multi-kill box, or whether it's Pulse IQ with a trap in it, I still know it's there and I can deliver a much better service to that customer by dealing with that problem straight away before it gets out of control. And reading the comments, Hugh, I get it's not going to go into the takeaways and the corner shops and all that. Absolutely not. But there are lots of good quality businesses out there that will pay that extra money for that extra protection. And your comparison, Sean, is very good. Comparing it to a burglar alarm system. Absolutely. Back in the day, the rental surveyors would compare it to fire extinguishers.
Right.
Yeah. So with that, I mean, like, how to phrase what I was about to say. When we're talking about contracts being king, as we've established a couple of times, is there then a move away from again, let's move. We all understand if they don't go into the box, but there's more technology out there than boxes. There is more technology than boxes. With this, imagine if you were to change your contract then to, because your smart technology, your camera, let's just say camera, proves that there is a rat there, to which point you have justification to go out. So you change your business model from, let's do your site's covered and I will charge you for 6 routine visits a year or even quarterly analysis visits. However, on the flip side of that, if I can prove to you that there is a rat on your site and so there's a clear and present need to, I will do a call out charge and I'll simply charge you as a call out rate as we go along. If you keep your site clear and if you keep your site tidy and you do all my recommendations, then I only need to turn up to sort of like check around the edges and to make sure that everything's installed and working correctly. And then you don't have to do any work. But if there's rats, and I can prove there's rats, I'm going to come back more often. Now, on one side, if you've got a site that's got no rats, it's going to be cheap for the client. It's going to be cheap for you in time. If you've got a site where there's lots of rats, then it behooves your client to start doing the recommendations because they don't want you to come out every week. But if they do what you say, then they're going to fall into the camp of 4 visits a year as opposed to 1 visit a week. Do you see what I'm talking about there, guys? In the sense that it's a different way of selling. You sell a reaction to the data as opposed to an assumption on, past events.
And then the other thing there, Lex, is I would also, because we're talking about decent quality sites here, we're not talking about your corner shops and your high street and that sort of thing necessarily. You're looking for a 3-year contract, so it gives you business stability. You charge an upfront cost for the install, so you're getting some of your outlay back straight away. And then you lease the kit across that 3-year period. So again, the kit is sitting on your account as an asset, so it's your kit, and you're making your profit over a longer period. But you're also stripping out a lot of the cost to your business to go and deliver that traditional service. So it's making you more efficient.
So Hugh says here again, we're talking about, we're circling back again to this. We're only talking about a very small amount of contract sites that are suitable. But I want to take us back to a conversation we had an hour ago, not 30 minutes ago, which is, how do we as small and micro businesses compete with that larger player? And I think this kind of falls into that, doesn't it? Because suddenly, if you're taking the time aspect out of it, suddenly you can, cover all of the Tesco metros in your area. Thoughts on that? I mean, does this open up the doors? Some of the contracts which were previously closed to us because the keys were held by the servicing companies. Suddenly, does this start to open doors for us again?
Well, the question there, Lex, is why does the likes of Rentokil invest a shed load of money in developing smart technology? And they've always used smart technology as a barrier to exit. We get calls every day from people saying, "Can you get me a key for this Rentokil bait box?" And they deliberately put different locks on there so that if they lose the contract, somebody else can't use the boxes. And this is exactly what this is. And some tenders get written to their advantage, shall we say? And if you're going to try and if you want to
just explain that. Sorry, before you move on, because there'll be a lot of people who don't know what you mean by that. Just explain that.
What's that? Sorry.
Just explain the tenders being written to their advantage. Explain that because there'll be people who've never went for a tender, don't understand. Maybe it's been for some, lost out, don't know what's going on. Just explain that for
as tenders get written, so more and more tenders now will start to include clauses about including systems that can do A, B, and C. And it'll be.
Sorry, to take this back one step further. For those who don't, a tender, if you've never come across one of those before, is literally a large company writing a job advert for a job, not certainly a role or a person. It'll be a job advert for, NHS West has asked for you to cover this hospital, and we need you to do this, and there'll be a list of things, as Tim says, a list of things that you need to be able to do or show to be able to do, and then people write in and say, I can do all of those things, and I think I can do that for 60 grand a year, or I think I can do it for 80 grand a year, but I can also include these things as well. And then you always get some numbnuts who's just like, I'll do it for 20p in a packet of polos. And there we go.
And
so that's what a tender is. And they always win. Yes. But sorry, Tim, back as you're saying, because that's the crux of what a tender is.
A good example is I had a call yesterday from a customer who's been invited to tender for a large site. The current incumbent provider is providing a smart technology solution. You wind the clock back 4 or 5 years ago, there is no way on this earth that individual who phoned me yesterday could have actually tendered for that work. Now he can put together a very, very competitive tender and go after that big blue chip business and contract, which he's going to, if he wins it, he'll get it for 3 years. That's good, solid business to build expansion of his business around.
Yeah.
He's got to find the upfront outlay, but
that's what the banks are for, isn't it? At the end of the day, no risk, no reward. But at the same time, it's interesting because the more you think about this, the more and it's not just the technology; it's the application of the technology will open doors for us. And as Neil says, I don't think you replace eyes on the ground with just tech. The technology can't see into wall cavities. It can't inspect drains. You're absolutely right, 100%.
Absolutely.
But it's not an either or situation, is it?
And I've never said that technology should replace the human being, because Neil's absolutely right. But what you do is you do less visits of a higher standard.
Mm-hmm.
And the reporting is not just routine visit carried out, no pest activity found. It becomes more akin to the sort of work that Melvin does for us in terms of field biology inspections supported by photographs. And you're right, what you said, Lex, alongside that, absolutely, the customer's got to carry that work out.
Yeah, it's great. Terry Ashley, we're running up to the end of the show here. He's mentioned thermal imaging. Now, I do have to say there was one company, no names mentioned because that'd be unfair, but there was one of the big servicing companies actually bought out a camera, and it was thermal imaging, so it was picture in picture, so to speak. It was a visual image overlaid with a thermal image, so you can get a much finer definition on it. But I saw it in action, and it was fantastic because whereas you were just looking at it with your standard visual camera and you weren't able to pick out necessarily the definition of a mouse moving on the periphery along a wall, the thermal element of it, dear God, was absolutely stunning. But the costs associated with it, I think it was, you had to sign up for a year. They had their model in place. And it was, you were talking about something like to rent them alone was something like, I can't remember the exact number, but it was almost prohibitive for most other than sort of like supermarket chains. But that technology really excited me because how good's that? Imagine that on your farm, Sean, in the thickets of the undergrowth.
It's coming. It's coming. The price of that will come down. Thermal imaging's come down massively from when we were first looking at it for other applications. It's coming. And when you can turn it from night vision into thermal or what have you, and you can give them these options and pictures 1,000 words, I think in winning work, if you're that way inclined, and I think a lot of the pharmaceuticals, the big firms, the whatever it is, you'll get away with saying we can do you a free 1 week survey, and when they do, I think the incumbent will absolutely shit his pants. I know I would. I wouldn't like it.
Do you know where my prediction, and I predict this will be something that we will see in the next 5 years or so, especially up on, imagine a drone, because with drones you can actually plot a route around a site. So as you do that initial inspection, you basically pace with your phone little geo markers, and you set it off, and you basically set a drone up on site on a little recharging mount next to a Wi-Fi router, and every hour or so it pops up. It does a high visual tour of the site, taking pictures of the thermal, looking for animals, and then it does a low visual site, and it basically scans along the wall with its AI, looking for changes in discrepancy. Have you spotted a hole here? Has this hole become bigger or smaller from the last time it done it? And at that point, you just do that. Can you imagine how cool that would be? That minority report shit going on there. It's going to tell you problems before they happen. And all you're going to have to do is leave your sort of like eyes in the skies behind to go and sort of like run around and have a look. Then you can actually go and properly go through the thickets and have a look on the inside with your little eyeballs flying around every hour while you wait. How cool would that be? Just a thought out
there. Going back to what you said at the start, though, I know we had Sav on the other week talking about Pest partnership and stuff. I think these larger acquisitions, having more of the bigger firms at market, especially when you've started to bring people like him in who are disruptors, who are doing things differently. I think it's a very, very, very exciting time to be involved in pest control. A fucking very exciting time. And if you are forward facing and you will think outside the box, I think the world is at your feet. I just don't think it's going to suit those who want to hang on to the good old ways of doing it. And they're going to whinge like hell when it comes, aren't they?
Kicking and screaming, Sean.
The what? Oh yeah. They're gonna hate it. They're gonna hate it.
One way or the other, they're going to get kicking and screaming into the light, or they're going to be dragged off kicking and screaming into the night. It's going to go one of two ways, isn't it? There's going to be no sitting on the fence with this. Right, we're coming up to just the last 5 minutes there. So, as always, with a bit of a twist, Tim, have you got a question for me and Sean?
I've already asked that about Grinder.
Asked and answered. I think there's a bit of a romance brewing here. Oh, there we go. Sultry wink from Sean there. Oh, perfect. Well, with that, and yeah, Fred, couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
I've got a serious question.
Really exciting.
Hang on a second. We've got a serious question.
Okay.
Not that I can think of, no.
You're rubbish as a host.
But I'm not a host.
Right. There we go. Should we bring them up then? Should we bring up the last questions? Cool.
Have you enjoyed the time on the podcast?
I have actually, yes.
Yeah, we're all right.
I was a little bit nervous earlier on, but there you go.
Yeah.
I know.
I love that word.
I've up and caused myself problems, but there you go.
I don't think you've caused yourself any problems at all. And I love that word, actually. It speaks volumes, doesn't it? Actually wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay. Give us a shameless plug.
Killgerm. We still believe we get it right. We still believe that supporting our customers in the right way is the right way of doing things. And we are genuinely here to not necessarily save you a pound on a bag of bait, but we can certainly help you make a lot more money out of your business. Talk to us. Let me buy you a cup of coffee. Have that conversation.
Pound off your bait and a cup of coffee. What else do you need?
There you go.
Lovely stuff.
Now, the next one.
Yeah. And the next one is, who would you like to see on Beauties and Beasties podcast?
Well, clearly, I'm going to throw my very good. Well, I've got two answers to this, Sean. Clearly, I'm going to throw my very good friend and erstwhile ex-colleague, Mr. Barnard, under the bus. Because that would just be rude not to throw Mr. Barnard under the bus, wouldn't it? Really.
I do have to say, just before you tell us your second one, Lawrence dropped me a message earlier yesterday saying that he was absolutely so sad that he's actually on the road at the moment. Otherwise, he would have been tuning in. Yeah. He promised me the amount of shit he would have given you had he been online would have been phenomenal. So you dodged one there.
I realise that. And it would have just turned into a battle between me and him. So it's a good job he's not here. But a serious one for you, and I'm going to set you a challenge here, is why not get on people who are at the other end of your service, the service offering? Go out and get people from the marketplace. So from the FM market, from the food supply chain market, etc., who are on the receiving end of pest control, and see what they want for the future. See what they think of their current service and see what they want for the future.
That might be a really good one, actually. I know a couple of folks over at Softy, which could be an interesting chat, and maybe we could get someone from BRC on. That would be an interesting conversation, wouldn't it?
That might just give a lot of people listening to this a real guide of where they need to be looking and what they need to be doing to prepare themselves for the next 5 or 10 years.
My girlfriend's pal, her husband, he is the MD for the biggest ice cream manufacturer. Like, if you go and buy any own brand ice cream, Tesco's, whatever, they manufacture it. And they don't just do that, they'll make stuff for like the big ones as well. He would be it's just getting them on, isn't it? There was definitely someone came up and spoke to me at Pest Tech as well, who was that way inclined. But if anyone's watching this and you know of someone who is suitable, shout them out, give her a leg up on that one, because that would be incredibly interesting.
It would give people real insight. And it may not be the MD you need, Sean. It might well be somebody in the compliance team or the hygiene teams, or who are the ones that are truly on the receiving end.
Come on, Stuart. We're looking at you. You know everyone, mate. You have given us more leads and contacts than anyone else. You've got to know someone in that industry. Absolutely. Right. I would say we approached Sterling Crew. He was one. Talking of Sterling Crew, and that's. But there we go. But we accept the challenge.
And if nothing else, it's just proven that I hadn't listened to some of these because I knew what was coming.
They're good podcasts. What do you mean you've listened to some of them? You've listened to all of them, Tim. Don't lie. You tune in every week. We know.
No, normally at this time of night, I am down the bowls club with a pint of Guinness in my hand, or on the bowling green.
last question before we leave. In golf you have a handicap. In bowling you have your perfect run. In bowls, go on then. What's your number? What are you ranked as? How does that work? If bowls are such a big thing.
Difficult, because it's the one sport where you can genuinely play against players of all levels, and I'm including the best players in the world. So it's
proper sad balls, isn't it? It is proper sad, isn't it?
Where do I stand? Well.
I bet you're like the Luke Littler. The amount of people who are that old that play bowls, you are the Luke Littler of bowls, aren't you?
No, there are a lot of very good youngsters out there. Don't you worry. I got an absolute mountain of piss taken out of my mates for the interview they did after Ken and I won a national title last year, in which I described myself and my partner as just two average club bowlers. We are slightly better than average club bowlers, but we certainly ain't international class.
Yet.
Luke Littler, you're a dead ringer from
him. It's on a par with darts as being probably the most sociable sport that you can. There are not many sports that you can play where you can carry a pint of Guinness down the rink with you.
That's the real clincher, isn't it? That's why you love bowls so much.
90% of the people who play bowls can't carry a pint of Guinness, can they? They're like on the Zimmer scheme like this. No wonder you're up there.
You go to Scotland on tour, and one of the traditions in Scotland is that they put a tray at either end of the rink, and every time you get to the other end, there's a dram waiting for every player. 21 ends. 21 shots.
Oh, they'll be people chinning each other and everything, won't they? Kicking off headbutting and stuff up in Scotland.
There we go. You're basically just telling me that bowls is not actually a sport, it's a drinking game. That's basically what you've told me.
I think we might have turned it into that.
Right, there we go. Oh, perfect. Well, with that, I think that brings us nicely to a bit of a wrap there. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And Tim, thank you ever so much for being here.
Pleasure, guys. Pleasure. I look forward to listening to it back in my journey to watch it on Monday.
There we go. You can relive the trauma. Bye-bye, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to the Beauties and Beasties podcast.